Today on Shift Talk, I have Josh Drean. He's the co-founder of the Work3 Institute and now added to his resume, the author of Employment is Dead. I think you should have picked a more like in your face title. I think you really could have gone for the jugular a little more with that one.
Doesn't do it for you, huh?
Yeah, it just feels a little soft to me, Josh. Anyway, great to have you back. I want to dig into the book and some of the things you talk out throughout the book. There's some really interesting ideas. And also want to hear just what you've been up to and what you've been seeing so far in 2025 and try to figure out what the hell any of us are supposed to do. Maybe we've got some good ideas. Maybe we don't. I guess we're going to find out. So
We're going to find out together, my friends. And thanks for having me back on the show. I feel like we did this, like 6 months ago or so. Back then, the book was just a manuscript. We were waiting for it to be published, and it has published, which is exciting. Employment is Dead. It is a pretty bold title. And I'm not going to lie, like when we first pitched this to Harvard Business Review, we knew we needed something bold, and that's a big statement. And we never thought they were going to keep it all the way through. You think that they would have shifted it a little bit, but they kept it. They kept Employment is Dead. And we have stayed pretty true to that narrative because it's truly what we believe. Everyone's feeling it.
Yeah.
We're just clinging to some of these old hierarchical 9-to-5 type structures for work that no longer serve us in the age of information.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say it that way because it does feel like there's still a bit of, I'm going to stick my head in the sand. It's not really happening. I'm hearing a lot, especially we focus specifically in manufacturing and distribution. And I can't tell you how many of them are frustrated because operations and that side of the house has always come to them saying, yeah, I know our turnover is at 300, 400%. You just got to hire better people. That's the problem. We need good people. I'm like, that's not what.
When you are burning through that many people and you're not looking internally yet, I think that might be a signal that you are not ahead of the curve with the trends and the expectations of employees. That is the main theme of the book, that traditional models of employment are failing to adapt to the needs of the modern workforce. And so if you are trying the old stick in the carrot, and it's not working like it used to,
right?
It's not the people, it's you. And I feel like there's some pretty easy solves, some pretty like HR 101 solves. Have we asked them what they want? Have we talked to the employees about why they are churning over so quickly, why there's high attrition? And like more often than not, probably aren't. You probably aren't listening to them at all.
I don't know that answer. Why do I ask them?
And here's the thing, right? I think it's just a subconscious thing. I think it's not that they don't want to know. It's that they know that when they hear the answer, it will confirm what they've known all along. And they're unwilling to do anything about it because of the structure of how things are set up, right? The traditional employment, right, is it's contractual. It is, you work for me X amount of hours. I pay you Y amount of dollars. And productivity happens. And that's just not the case anymore. The incentive model is broken. Employees need more than that. Even if you do give them a paycheck, is that enough to provide for a living? You want them to be loyal, but doesn't seem like there's any incentive. We're seeing layoffs like crazy. We're seeing companies say one thing and do another. And so like fundamentally, we thought the pandemic really exposed the culture of an organization, the lip service they paid to culture, and it turned out to be false. The walls are falling off everywhere now where it's like, oh, the business model is short-term shareholder value. How can we get as much profit as possible and pay those dividends to those shareholders? That often comes in conflict with what the employees want and need. Therefore, I think we know what employees want and need, but are we still looking for suckers, or are we still looking for people who want to move beyond the contract and into a partnership?
No, I love that. And actually, that's one of the things I wanted to pull out of your amazing book. I'm going to
There it is
here for a moment. Wait, focus. Got to get this right. Here we go. Employment.
I love to see it.
So one of the things you mentioned, I think You almost literally pulled it word for word. Are you ripping off this author? Wait,
Whoever he is, he's so handsome.
whoever devilishly handsome. It literally says they're struggling to afford the cost of living on one income. A majority are forced to chase a side hustle. They've seen generations before them hustle and grind for 40 years with the promise of a decent retirement. And even that model is slipping away. They'd rather prioritize living now while they're young enough to enjoy it. And I love that. You had another quote where it's like, the difference is they're working to live instead of living to work. People have choices, a lot more choices than they did 50 years ago, certainly.
That model used to work really well,
Right.
mainly because I will sacrifice all of this time because of the security that it provides me. It's worth it, right? I can send my kids to college. I can buy a house. I could buy a boat so that we can enjoy our weekends. The
Right.
grind and the hustle is worth it because there is so much you get out of it. You get to retire comfortably. You get to live the last 20 to 30 years of your life traveling the country or whatever you want to
Whatever you want
do,
to do
right?
on your
Like
pension.
that. Yeah, that's amazing. And that is the case for our parents. But when you start to see a majority of them probably were lied to, they're 70 and they're still working. Why can't they afford to retire? What's happening there with Social Security? Or we don't even make those promises anymore.
No,
And so
pensions don't even exist anymore.
what is that? Can you
I
explain
know.
it? The younger generation is literally, that's not even a thing. And I know that, and again, the TikTok generation shares information, they talk. So whatever gaslighting you used to do and get away with because everyone just fell into this kind of the schema. Nowadays it's, oh, someone who's been working in corporate for a long time just posted a TikTok that went viral that explained the game to me. And so I'm going to play my own game. If you cannot provide security, number one need, security for my family, then why should I do any of this for you? And given right now we're in this like waiting for emerging technologies to truly make a path for employment outside of this traditional norm, but like we see quiet quitting where you have to get a paycheck, but you are not going to go above and beyond. We're seeing mid-level management be completely abandoned because why would I do more work and take on more stress for not even that much more pay to climb your corporate ladder? That doesn't make sense. Revenge quitting, where people are quitting at this optimal time to stick it to the man, if you will. So if you're not watching the trends and you're not listening to the voice of the employee, then you might think that things are still working the way that they used to, but they very much are not. And we need to tune into that. And that's why we boldly declare employment is dead. It's right on the cover.
Yes, there's plenty of leaders out there that still want things to operate like it's 1960. But I would say in the last 2 years, I've seen a number of folks, especially in the HR space. Hey guys, this is what I'm seeing and hearing every single day. What kinds of options or solutions would you recommend to that person who says, Josh, I get it. Like, we've got to meet employees today where they are in a space where you have to physically be someplace to do the work. How do they think about some of the solutions that would help solve these problems?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We call it the deskless workforce in our book. It's something that I think that HR has gravitated towards as well. There's workforce that needs to work through the pandemic. There's a workforce that needs to be in person, in a factory, in a warehouse, doing the work. That whether that's in healthcare, whether that's in distribution, there's a lot there, right? And I would hope that you don't think that's a cop-out, that none of the flexibility talk even matters to us because we're exempt. We're in person. That's what we do. You are not exempt. You are not. You need to figure out how to build a relationship with your employees. So what we call it, the 10 operating principles of Work3 in our book. Essentially, these are the non-negotiables of the modern workforce. If you want to retain your top talent, if you want to engage your top talent, I'm using antiquated terms, by the way, like employee engagement is this great way that we can trick employees to doing their best work because
Right.
we gave them a ping pong table. But I'm using these words because what we understand is productivity. Our
Mhm.
people are either not being productive, not showing up, leaving after a few months, some big challenges. The number one starting point is work is not a contract, it is a relationship. And you need to build relationships. Relationships don't happen one way. Like you don't meet someone and like, all right, I am going to dictate the terms of this relationship. And if you don't like it, you're the problem. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's got to go both ways. So we have 10 things, right? 10 principles. It's flexibility, autonomy, collaboration, interoperability. And I ask CHROs all over the world, can you offer any of your employees any of these today? And if the answer is no, why should they work for you? You're giving them a paycheck. Sure, they're going to have to work a second job to make ends meet. They probably will never be able to afford a house, especially if you are working in a factory. You did that job because you were paid really well. You sacrificed your body to get paid really well. We can go as basic as that. Pay your people more money. Oh, you can't? Fine.
Oh,
Then let's look at the 10 operating principles of work and give them some of these elements. And happy to jump in further to some of the most pressing and relevant today.
yeah. Let's do just gonna jump over to that.
So yeah, while you're
Go
pulling
ahead.
that up, flexibility is top of mind right now. Keep in mind, this is only one of the 10 operating principles. So we are seeing this RTO mandate power dynamic playing out in real time, mostly with white collar working in an office workers. Doesn't always apply, sometimes we think, to manufacturing and distribution. However, when you look at the core argument here, one side, the CEO, you see the leader who is saying, we do our best work when we're collaborating in person. We don't think that workers are actually working when they go home. And so we feel like we need to come back to the office 5 days a week.
Right.
On the other hand, you have employees saying, we actually work better from home because it's a quiet place where I can get work done without distraction. We don't have to commute, which is expensive. It costs us a lot of money out of our paycheck. We're just commuting so we can sit on a Zoom call in the office. We're not really collaborating with anyone. Like, so you go back and forth and everyone's looking at the data. Like, are
Yeah.
you more productive from home or in the office? And I would say at this point, there's no definitive, this is it, even though there's articles that state in person might work better. There are articles that state that at home works better. But to me, that is all besides the point. Flexibility, like why do employees want flexibility? It's because they live in the 21st century where things are very different. Back in the 1970s or the 1950s, as you mentioned, the 1960s, it was one person in the home handles the domestic responsibilities, working with raising the kids, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, all of the things. And then the other goes to work 9 to 5, comes home from the office and washes their hands of work. They sit down in their big old oversized chair and read the paper and ignore their kids or whatever.
What's a paper?
There you go. A newspaper. These models, like, it worked once upon a time. Now you don't have a very strong work-life balance because both parents are working
Mhm.
more often than not. They're still living paycheck to paycheck. They still have to go to the office and handle all the domestic responsibilities. And don't even get me started on the cost of childcare and child rearing. I have 3 boys under the age of 8, and it is
My
extremely
condolences.
expensive. So when we say flexibility, what we're saying is I need some work-life balance
Yeah.
and I'm not finding it right now and I'm burning out and it's costing you money. So how do we reconcile?
It's interesting. I was talking to someone earlier this week who's been in HR for 30 years in the manufacturing space. And she brought up a great point. Companies need to look at their frontline workforce the same way they look at their product. If they saw that there was a high rate of failure in getting a product out the door, they would approach and say, okay, we got to look at this data, figure out what's going on, identify what's damaging the product, and go put in processes in place so that stops happening so we can put out a quality product. To your point, maybe we can't just raise pay rates overnight because there really is no financial wiggle room at that moment. Fine. What can you do? You now have, as to your point perfectly stated, you now have moms in the workforce that are still sometimes to be the ones expected to make sure kids get to school, get to doctor's appointments. So are you creating a system where maybe you let them come in an hour later than everybody else, or you let them work a half shift instead of a full shift, or you let them swap when they're supposed to come in on Friday with coming in on Saturday instead? It doesn't mean you have to go spend millions of dollars on pay increases or new products or new processes. Sometimes it's as simple as just saying, yes, that's okay if you take that time off. That's literally all they're asking for, is just, yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
Crazy
Yeah.
idea.
And thank you so much for highlighting that. You're absolutely right. It's crazy that we spend millions of dollars to understand the customer experience. And if something goes wrong there, all hands on deck. And yet we still treat employees like office equipment.
Yeah.
And the argument is like,
machine.
are employees customer number one? How do you expect them to provide high quality products if they aren't bought into the company? Like, we should be solving that. And I get that there was this huge movement in the 90s. It was like culture and culture eats strategy for breakfast. A Peter Drucker kind of thing. Franklin Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Bring in a motivational speaker to pump us up. Let's go. And then you realize it's like, but why? I work harder so you can make more money so that the company can meet their quarterly goals so that you can pay more money to shareholders.
Yeah, so you can pay out dividends. That's awesome.
Good for you guys. But man, I just want to feed my kids. I just want to be able to go on vacation once in a while. I just want to be able to pay for a doctor's visit, which is becoming harder and harder to do. So
second job just for that.
So I just want to highlight this again. The structure of work is broken. The contract is broken because if we can't provide for the base needs of employees, and I don't think that what they're asking for is irrational. We label them as lazy. We label them as, oh, we're going to pay them more and they're going to spend it. Or whatever excuse you want to say, leader, that's fine. But what happens when the masses revolt? And I'm not saying like a lot of the political environment that we're seeing right now. I'm just saying, what happens when a more attractive alternative to work comes along? Where, hey, knock on the door, hey, employee who hates their job, did you know that you could work for a DAO? Which essentially means you could work on several projects that you are hyper specialized in across several organizations at the same time. And you get to pick your schedule and you get to make probably more money doing that. Oh, and by the way, we have a structure where you can get all the benefits and the stability and security that you're looking for. How about that? And they'd be like, of course. So what we write about in the book is these emerging technologies, Web3 and AI, they have the power to create a new environment where a workforce ecosystem is not a traditional 9-to-5. I'm going to use some Web3 words here.
Go ahead, go for it.
A bounty hunter who chases projects and works for several companies at a time, mixing and matching several streams of income. Think of it as more just like a more secure freelancer or a contractor. And they work for several DAOs. Their skills are imprinted on the blockchain, which means you don't need to hustle so hard to prove your credentials. It's already done. And now you get to reclaim some of the elements that you've lost, which is the flexibility, the autonomy, the ownership over your work. Now you get to work on passionate projects with passionate individuals doing something you love rather than, oh, shoot, I have to have this full-time job. I'm working 90% what I don't like to do so I can get to the 10%. And I'm not actually getting compensated up to the level of the work that I'm doing. So there's a lot of challenges.
It's interesting. One of the other quotes I wanted to pull out from your book where it says, 75, according to a recent EarthWeb poll, 75% of kids aged 6 to 17 now aspire to be YouTubers rather than traditional professionals such as doctors or even firefighters. It shows just how much the entire worldview of what it means has had a seismic shift in the last 15, 20 years. Probably even a shorter time span than that. You think about YouTube, it's only been around for 15 years. And it's influenced an entire generation to look at work differently. And to what you were just talking about, they think of work as something that I just want to go do this thing, get paid fairly for it, and then be able to go do other things that I want to do instead of it being a contract where I'm giving you 70% of the hours that are total available in my week and taking home just enough that I need to go get a second job and have a side hustle and do Uber and Lyft on the weekends because I can't pay my, mortgage payment. I can't make the rent this month. You can see why that's going to be so disruptive.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. We haven't really even dug into the expectations of the emerging generation, right? It's fascinating to see. The YouTube, we call it the creator economy. And there's a lot of positive and negatives to be said about the creator economy. And older generations really like to point out that it's not an actual viable business, though. Like, you're just making videos and hoping you get followers,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're getting paid for making content. Sure, some people might make it, but most don't. I push back on that because
Yeah.
the
What's your take?
the creator economy is going to pave the way for the anything economy. And we talk about this in our book, which is right now it's just go out and record yourself doing anything, post it up on YouTube, and hopefully someone will see it and find an audience.
Yeah.
What if you applied that same model to your skills? You have acquired a certain amount of skills, things that you like to do, things that you're good at. Instead of selling yourself to one company that underutilizes your skills, what if you had a community, essentially? These 9 DAOs, decentralized autonomous organization, that all need your skills, and now almost an entrepreneur out there sharing your skills and your work across several different organizations, irregardless of the boss, irregardless of what's happening. This, what I'm painting, the picture I'm painting is the current gig economy.
Right.
But gig economy 2.0 brings back some of that security, some of that stability. Reid Hoffman, who is one of the co-founders of LinkedIn, just stated that jobs will be obsolete by 2034. And I think a lot of people have misinterpreted that of, oh, robots are coming to take our job. AI is coming and replacing all of us. He's not saying that. He's saying that traditional employment doesn't work. The incentive model is broken. And so if you can incentivize people to be compensated up to the value that they are generating for an organization, they'll most likely work harder to get compensated more. And that is the solve for the productivity fulfillment loop.
No, I love that point. I was just going to bring that up. Upskilling is a huge part of your book. And it's a big piece of what I see in our workforce. A big piece of their motivator is I want to learn new skills. I want to be able to work on autonomous equipment. I want to be able to learn these skills. Nobody I've spoken to says, oh, we're bringing in automation and we're planning on having 0 frontline workers 6 months after that. In fact, one of our clients just got done spending millions and millions of dollars of investment in automation. And what they're finding is in some places they need more people. So there's all these things employees are saying, hey, I'm willing to do hard work. I want to be fairly compensated for it. All I'm asking is either teach me to do this work or help pay to teach for me to get this additional education. And I'll be happy to do a higher skill level job. They just get labeled as lazy and they don't want to work. And it's really more of, they just don't want to do meaningless work for.
And look at how society tells them to upskill, right? Go to college for 4 years, spend $150,000 for 4 years to get a degree, and then you will get a job.
Maybe.
All of that's broken. All of it is broken. First off, AI can probably upskill you much faster than a professor can. A lot of these people are stuck outside of current business, so they
Yeah,
might be years behind some of these trends. And then you get out of college and it's
no, no
percent of
job.
employees, they can't find a job.
Yeah.
I think it's 25% of Harvard MBAs can't find a job right now, which is unheard of for
Crazy.
the generation that's in power right now. And especially when they know that they can leverage AI and Google and YouTube to learn all the skills that they need to be efficient right now. So that model is out the window. So how do we move to this a new model of upskilling where it's I know you have the skill, it's been verified. I know that you can do these things. How do we plug you into the system? Like those are the challenges that we should be thinking. Not how many people should I lay off so that we can save more money today at the expense of breaching trusts among our current employees. It's bonkers.
So, what would you recommend to somebody who says, okay, Josh, I'm bought in. I want to do this. I'm ready to take those steps. What do they do next?
It's a great question. The most basic foundational advice that I can give is listen to your employees, understand their needs, the lack of resources, the wants, even, and do everything in your power to give it to them. Those are problems that we are working to solve right now, today. HR tech, employee engagement software tools, productivity management, it's available today. It's not rocket science. If you're not doing that, start there because I guarantee you they will tell you exactly what you need to do and you need to do it. Because if you prioritize short term shareholder value over employee needs, you will not experience the expected productivity gains.
Start somewhere. That's what I'm hearing. Just do something. Start somewhere, start asking questions, start figuring it out. Love that. If you want to find out more, look up Josh Drean. He's on LinkedIn. He's got the Work3 Institute. Is there any particular avenue you tell people to find you at that work best?
Whatever social media you use, wherever you purchase your books, you can find us. And I'm hyper active. So if you send me a DM on TikTok, I will see it and respond immediately. So
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Josh. This has once again been just amazing. I love getting to talk to you. We're going to definitely have to do this again. Maybe we could do a recap on where 2025 ended if things haven't completely burned to the ground. And we'll catch up and go, yeah, I thought it would go in this direction, but it went totally the other way. Anyway, great. Good luck on the launch of your book. I'm thrilled to see you're already having success. If you haven't already gotten a copy, go order it. It is a great read, no matter what industry you're in. And would love to have you back on the show sometime, Josh.
it's always a pleasure, Adam. Thanks so much for having me.